Right, so good afternoon. Welcome to the NEBOSH National General Certificate. We, of course, on the project, part three. We started it last week. Well, we got more than, part three. We got part one, part two. We're on part three now, and then we're going to finish off part four. If we are finished, though, what I can do, I can probably just come back to some theory, but it's good that you all understand because, as I mentioned, you all had no questions. So we expect to see some really nice, perfect projects there that we could send across the NEBOSH and get a full pass anyway, right? So I wouldn't recap, seeing that you all have no questions. If there's a question, I would have had cause to recap. So we can go straight into the part three, right? So, um, right. So part three, remember there were two parts to part three. This is on YouTube and on the group chat as well. The first part of part three is the moral, legal, and financial argument to manage health and safety. If you all said you had no questions with that, we could move to the next piece of it then, right? So the next piece of this is, I think I was saying last week, part three have two separate teams, and the second team have nothing really to do with the first team. So the first team is to write the moral, legal, and financial argument. You all said that you're okay with that. And so the second team of part three is from here now then, right? So let's take it from here. We want to remind you all to have your cameras on, those of us who have it off, right? Right. Okay, so this part of part three, what you're doing here is you are choosing three of the actions for further control from the RA table, and you are going to use those three for this part of part three, right? In a way, you were taking, I said it the correct way there, right? But I was saying in a way, you are like choosing three uh hazards, but it's not quite hazards, right? But you're choosing three further controls from the hazards to use on the table here. So you're kind of boiling down the 10 to make it three main hazards, right? But in a way, if you look at it here, you are taking the controls from the fourth column, but three of them. And when I say three, it's not three all in one. There's like a place to plug it in here, like a plug in one. Then there's a place to plug in another one. And then there's a place to plug in another one, right? And then when you finish with all of that, that's the end of part three. Just give me 1 minute here when you could probably just see if you have any questions again, and you'll let me know. Right. So let me check with the chat, right? Okay, somebody's organizing work. All right. So right. So we can go back
I
because I
have a
want to show
question.
you what I was talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of the part three, right? I know we went into parts one and two in detail last week for the beginning class, I think the first part three with the moral, legal, and financial. I know we would have mentioned it in passing. I don't know if it is like I may have missed something in terms of like if it is we went into detail with it or
Yeah, we went into it.
we
Yeah,
passed
yeah,
through it.
yeah. No, we actually didn't just mention it. I think it was done in detail. As far as I could tell, I don't know if you could watch back the video, but from what I saw on the group, it was done in detail, right? Because I guess we could confirm that, but if it wasn't, then I'll go back to it. But I think it was done in detail. May class project 1 and 2. Let's see how
Um,
far we got.
the moral, legal, and financial and reasons. I am a bit lost for that section as well.
I use the word elimination. Okay. Think you understand? If I said purchase and keep. But was it to be lost about it? There's a guidance for it. Let me see if we did it. We did piece of it, right? So I could run you back piece for you. I'm an engineer, but it's supposed to be engineering control. Okay, so I think we're good. From what I see here, like we did actually mention it, but at least the end of the video didn't seem to go through it, right? Normally the video would have end with that part three, but apparently it didn't, right? So we went through it again. 6 days ago, right? This is a video. Okay. All right, not a problem, right? So let's go back up to the Patrick. So thanks for the comments there. There's just asking me for if you all had if you was okay with it. All right, so the first piece of Patrick, then if you go back to here, um, so what are you doing here? Again, if you want to start back at the beginning then, right? So Patrick has two parts to it. And you can start writing that down. And the first part of Patrick is actually totally different to the second part of part three. So we were just on the second part of part three, so you can see that, right? Like that first piece of the moral, legal, financial have really nothing to do with this here anyway, right? So the first piece of part three, what you're doing according to the guidance, we had met some people behind here, right? A lot of folks are in the back there. Okay, so we had some people coming in. We just try to get them all in, right? 16 persons on the line, right? But nonetheless, of course, we are recording, right? So remember, we said that there are already videos of this on the YouTube channel. So you can have a look at this. You can have a look at it before even today's class anyway, right? But we'll continue with this from here. So what I was saying is that the first piece of part three have three things to write, or you need to write about three main topics then, right? We have what is called the moral reason to manage health and safety. We have the general legal reason to manage health and safety. And we have the financial reason to manage health and safety, right? Now, it could be in that same order. I think moral, legal, and financial. I think that's what's happening here. They have moral here. Then they have this looks like financial to me, right? But it really should have probably been legal, which is down here, and then financial. So I would probably say stick to the format of moral, legal, and financial, right? So what you are doing, trying to maneuver our faces away from this thing, right? So what we do, we are going to write a small passage on each of them then, right? You're writing a small paragraph on the moral reason to manage health and safety, the legal reason, and the financial reason. Right. So Michelle, again, remember that like if you have the project, then you don't need to be in this class because if you have the project already, then I guess you could leave, right? You could leave the class then because
I
uh
appreciate that too.
yeah, yeah. So I think I messaged that to you this morning already.
Oh, okay.
Not too
Thank
sure
you.
why it is you logged in. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
moral,
Bye bye.
then
I'm
we
leaving soon. Bye.
okay. All right, then we have more. Then we have legal. I probably prefer to do legal next and then financial. All right. So Okay, so I'll have a read of this, right? It says here, so NGG Limited has a moral duty to protect all workers. Our workers come to work to earn a wage, not to be put at risk of falling ill now or in the future. Because of the work activities that they carry out now, some of the ill health conditions that could be contracted or injuries that could occur will have a major impact on the lives of the workers and their families slash friends. Long-term injuries, ill health, um, and also likely to have a major impact on our workers' mental health. The mental health of other workers could also be affected if they are witness to any serious injuries to other workers, right? So I'm not too sure what the understanding is here, but it's a simple passage and the moral reason to manage health and safety, right? So, you all have to say it back in your own words. A couple of lines, right? The moral reason to manage health and safety. I know what NEBOSH normally looks for here is they look for the impact on you. Like, what's the effect if health and safety is not managed on you? That's what you mentioned here. You see injuries, right? Ill health injuries, the impact on you. And they also look for the impact on your family and friends, right? So the impact on you and the impact on your family and friends. So that must be mentioned, right? That must be mentioned for the pick up the mark, family and friends. If you're writing anything down, then you take this down. But as to the understanding, I think it's a small passage you're writing. And, I'm not going to make up any for you, right? You can write your own anyway. Please don't plagiarize what you have here. Just write about why safety should be managed anyway. And it's beneficial for you and it's beneficial for your family and your friends, right? The next part here, I would go to legal, and for legal, I would talk about the HSW Act, right? So under legal, what should be mentioned is the HSW Act, right? The Health and Safety at Work Act, you could mention things like the sections of the Act, in particular Section 2, sort of all the theory we kind of covered, right? You could mention the consequences of not following the Act in terms of fines, imprisonment in the UK, fines £20,000, so those remember that, right? 20,000 pounds minimum is the fine anyway in the UK. And well, I see they mentioned FIFA intervention here, right? FIFA intervention is mentioned there, the FFI, right? FFI, FIFA intervention. I'm just remembering somebody, somebody in my April class, they put up, I don't know if this be here in the wrong thing when we talk. So that's why I put FFI, right? But somebody put FBI, like the FBI, the CIA. So you will be careful with that. Tango was in the draft stages though, right? So it's the FIFA intervention, the current rate is 174 pounds per hour. 174 is the current. You can check your books and stuff or check online for these things. And then in law, I think you should also mention civil, right? Civil law. So you see that in the last paragraph here, they mentioned civil claims, right? But just say back in your own words, the action of civil claims that somebody could sue your company, and that's the idea of civil law anyway, right? So you mentioned the HSW Act. Don't mention any other law. The only law that should be mentioned here is the HSW Act, right? So this one is not too good, so I don't think I should read this because it's not too good. Because they didn't really do legal in a good way then, right? If you look at it, not seeing the act and stuff here. So this one is not too good, right? Like I would have said something like, I could do this one for you because it's not here. Could make up a couple of lines and say, like at we admit some people, right? At I guess X, Y, and Z company, the employers have a duty under the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, Section 2, to protect the health, safety, and welfare of employees, to provide safe plans, safe systems of work, to provide safe and competent fellow employees, something like that, right? To provide training. And then you can say, like, if these duties are not followed, there could be fines from the HSE. You could just use your book, chapter 1, the minimum fine, £20,000 to an unlimited fee, right? You can say it in your own words. If there's a material breach by the company could face fee for intervention, which is like a recoverable cost from the HSE. And that's £174 per hour, which is really more than £174, because most inspectors will stay more than an hour then, right? So this could be a substantial cost. And you can end this off by talking about civil law. If a worker was injured, this one may have been done well. This passage may be okay. It's just to change back the marker though. So let me see how to change this thing back. Right. So this one here, the organization could also find that civil claims from workers made ill by these work activities could be made. Some of these claims may be made some years after the worker have left NGG's employment. The likely amount of compensation payable for civil claims can be substantial. In fact, it's more than £500,000. All of that is in your notes from before. In addition to this legal fee, solicitors, barristers, courts would also be likely to be very high. I would also point out that many of these costs would not be recoverable from the insurance company. If something goes catastrophically wrong, NGG reputation could take a serious hit, which could result in loss of contract, especially the insurance book. Again, that could have been financial. That last line here could have probably been more with financial up here. But this sample mix it, and you shouldn't do that, right? You should keep the team separate. Moral, because when the examiners look at that, that's what they want to see. They want to see you have a moral argument why safety should be improved. You want to have a legal argument, and you want to have a financial argument, right? So let's see if you're okay with this. I would need to take this off to do financial because again, I'll tell you maybe another way you could get financial done, right? This is what you have for financial here, but we should rely on what we know as opposed to what the sample have here for this one anyway, right? So if you're okay with those two things, moral and legal, you're writing a moral reason why health and safety should be improved. You're writing a legal reason why health and safety should be improved. So if you're okay with those two. Remember, don't plagiarize, don't plagiarize, don't plagiarize. Find a way to say back things in your own way, right? Some things you're going to have to stick to, though, like on the RA table, if the hazard was manual handling, you'll have to say manual handling. You can't really change that, could you? If the hazard was hazardous substance, you can't really change that. So I guess those pieces kind of stay the same, right? I think I saw something went in the chat. All right, let's go to financial. I'm gonna clean this side here. So if you had to put a financial argument why health and safety should be improved, to me, what is the two main things you're supposed to talk about? Like if I say financial, right? Was it two main categories of financial loss to a company?
What direct and indirect costs
Very
associated.
good. Very good. Yeah, very good, right? So that's what I would have done. I would have said, I mean, and whatever it is, I would have said the financial costs would be direct and indirect, right? That's the best way. I mean, that's the theory in the textbook, right? You can check out page 4 and 5. You'll see, if you check my notes, you can see the iceberg theory. We can talk about all of those things. Say it in your own words, right? So I would break this down into like direct and indirect, and I could say things like, following an accident, it has been proposed by Heinrich that the cost could be both direct and indirect. This is DIRECT, right? So direct and indirect. You can talk about the direct cost of an accident could include things like property damage, immediate medical bills, what again, lost days that are paid to the worker that can be calculated. So you can write that, so you don't have to always stick to what you're seeing here, because when you stick to that, they could say it's plagiarism. The idea with the sample is they follow it, but you don't follow it that close, right? Indirect costs could be things from, if you remember the Heinrich theory, I had a book here just now, but I put it back. Chapter 1, you'd have seen indirect costs is additional investigation time. It could have been things like loss of reputation, lost production, um, what again? Loss of expertise, extra or rehiring. And you could just put more points on what you see in there. You know, you could put this have 3 points in it. Definitely you could do more than 3 points there anyway, right? Tell me if you're okay, that's moral, legal, and financial. Yeah. That would have been the first piece of part 3, right? Moral, legal, and financial. Tell me if you're okay with it. See if you have any questions. You don't have to always put what you see here. Don't quote nothing like this. Don't quote no figures or nothing like that, because it'll end up being plagiarism, right? Just say it the way you know to say it from your own notes and whatever have you, right? All right, we're gonna take that off and we'll get back into the second piece of part 3. So the second piece of part 3 has in it, as I was saying before, the second piece of part 3 have nothing to do with the first piece of part 3, right? So this is the second piece of part 3. This is what we started off with. And what you're doing here, I was saying, is like you're choosing 3 hazards. If you watch here, you see a hazard here, right? But it's not really the hazard you're taking, it's like the controls you're taking, right? I'll tell you what I mean by that just now. But in a way, you're taking the hazard, but you're taking the hazard control, because they say take it from the 4th column, and the 4th column was further controls, right? Hazard category, work at height. If you check down here again, the second one, you see another hazard category, hazardous substance. And if you check here again, you see another one, slips and trips. But it's not just the hazard you're taking, then it's really the control that you're taking, right? Just give me a minute, just take a look at that, see if you're okay with that. And I'll be back with you in a couple of minutes. All right, thank you very much for that half a minute there again, right? Okay, so let's so what I want to do, I want to show you like where they're getting this from. But for that, we have to go back up to the table, right? So you see here the actions is taken from the 4th column. But when you go back to the 4th column, so let's keep in mind what we're looking at, right? We're looking at work at height, right? So we're looking at work at height. So let's go back and find work at height. Let's have a read of this first. So it sounds familiar, right? They say here, what they took was purchase a mobile bridge to allow the mechanics to be able to safely access both sides of the inspection pit when working at ground level. And that came out from work at height. So it's taken from the 4th column of the RA table. So let's go and try to find it, right? And I want to show you why we're doing this. In fact, the examiners is going to look for it, because you can't really, once you put something there, they will go and try to find it, because it must be taken from that hazard then, right? So let's see if we can find work at height. Look, work at height here. Let's see if we can find the one about purchasing a mobile bridge. This is not it. That's not it. And these are not it either. So we go in again. Work at height. Watch it here. Work at height, right? Purchase a mobile bridge to allow the mechanics to be able to safely access both sides of the inspection pit when working at ground level. So did you all see it? So what you need to understand here, just gonna keep this in mind, is that this is the fourth column, right? If you check on top, and this is the fourth column, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That is the fourth column, right? But I wonder if you all see what's happening here. But there are many controls in the fourth column. This is one. All of those are controls in the fourth column. All of these down here would have been controls as well. But it just wants you to choose one. You all seeing that? So from the hazard, working at height, you just take one of the controls from the fourth column. I'll read it out again. Purchase a mobile bridge to allow the mechanics to be able to safely access both sides of the inspection pit when working at ground level, right? So what happened to this one? What happens to this one? Nothing. You just leave it. You just take one, right? Arrange all workers to be trained. No, you just take one. Change to safe systems of work. No, right? Assessment of risk to be added to the worksheet. No, you're just taking one. So folks, you'll understand that? We could probably look at another one, and they had slips and trips too. We could see if we could find slips and trips. That's one of the hazards. So in a way, like I said, your hazard table have 10, but you're taking only 3. And what you're really taking is not just the hazard, but you're taking the hazard control. Let's go try to find slips and trips. I think I saw it in one of the actions, right? Slips and trips, right? So slips and trips, and one of the action was arrange it for floors to be degreased at least weekly. So if you come back down to part 3, so how do you know which hazards to take? Well, you just take any 3. But in a way, the 3 you take should be the ones that are more risky then. Right? So watch this one here. This is on slips and trips. And what they have here was arrange for floors to be degreased at least weekly. So just tell me if you understand that. So how part 3 is starting? Part 3 is starting by you going back to your RA table, choosing 3 hazards that you think is high risk, and then you're taking one control from the fourth column, just one. Tell me if you're okay with that. But we didn't see this one, but you can see it here. Enclosed area to be set up for sanding, grinding operations, including that will include a suitable local exhaust ventilation system, and the hazard category is hazardous substance. So you do it the same way. You put the hazard category in brackets, if you notice that's what you're doing. But you put the action down there, right? The action here was purchase a mobile bridge, and you put the hazard category back in bracket, right? Which will be work at height. Tell me if you're okay with that part of it, because that, like if you get that wrong, the rest of part 3 is also wrong, right? So to go forward from here, you notice, like I said, the first piece of part 3, moral, legal, financial, really had nothing to do with what we're doing now, right? What you're doing now, you're choosing 3 hazards and then one control from the fourth column for that hazard. You put in the control in the line there, and you put in the hazard category in brackets. If you're okay with that, we can move to the second thing here, which is specific legal argument. See if you have any questions on that. Anyone? I'll give you some little pointers as we go again too. But this one is pretty straightforward. I mean, taken from the fourth column. I just slow down to show you how to do it though. But and then you take it on your own. Which 3 you take is up to you, but you should really take the ones that are kind of more high risk anyway. Any questions, anyone? I mean, if not, we can go to the second thing. I'll just give you a minute again. But less than a minute, 30 seconds. All right. Well, nobody have anything else to say, right? So specific legal arguments. So what you're doing here, though, what do you want to do here? You want to include here, now please take notes, sir. Well, we could always go back to the guidance, As I said, with the guidance, you don't really need a teacher. The guidance I've ever taken it. The other document is right to the top here. But I'm gonna stick to one at a time today, right? When I finish, I'll probably go back and, I mean, like you all know what I'm talking about, the guidance, right? I mean, the one with the forklift on it. Look at right at the top of the view screen up there, right? So, I'll open it for you all, right? Because I don't feel I'll get more time anyway, right? So when you come to here, they say specific legal argument, consideration of the likelihood and severity. When we come into that, right? Because that's the next rule. If it's a specific legal, they say here, your legal argument must reference, somebody got bumped out, right? Relevant UK specific legislation where applicable. So is any part of that unclear to anybody? Your legal argument must reference relevant UK specific regulations or legislation, not Trinidad and Tobago, not Guyana, not America, not OSHA, UK specific legislation, right? So as I say, like when you follow the guidance, you don't ever make any mistake, right? Because you get everything correct when you follow the guidance, right? So just the way I am at, let me just come back to what we're doing. Right, so here, this is where I was at, right? So that's how I know here to tell you now that what you put here is the UK regulation for that hazard. So what you want to put is the UK regulation for the hazard. You can get it in your second textbook, or you could just Google it, or you could go on the HSC website and get it. It must be the UK regulation for work at height. It's in the second textbook as well, but it's also in, you could just Google or go on the HSC website and put work at height regulation, right? So when you find it, you want to say it, you want to say what it is. You want to put a brief quote from it. How brief? Like about one line. You want to put a brief quote from that regulation. And you also want to say where the company is failing to meet that requirement that you just quoted. Where the company is failing to meet that quote there. And that wrap up this requirement here. That's only ing, right? So we can read this one. There are also specific legal duties that NGG need to meet. Under the Work at Height Regulation 2005, there is a duty to ensure that the work at height is 4A, properly planned, 4C, carried out in a manner which insofar as is reasonably practicably safe. So that's the quote, right? Instructions are given to the workers to walk around the inspection pit if they are working in the area, but these instructions are usually ignored. Workers would jump across the pit rather than work around it. NGG Limited, therefore, are failing in this duty. And that's what makes up this particular rule. See if you have any questions with it. Anyone? So you find the regulation, you put a quote, and you see where the company is failing to meet that quote. That would be throughout. And like if you look at the other one, let's try to look at the other one. When I mean the other one, number 2 would be the same thing. If you look at the second one here, then, right? So the second one, specific legal. So they'll find the regulation for the hazard. In this case, it's hazardous substance. They will quote it and they will say where the company failed to meet it, right? So under the Control of Substances Hazardous Health Regulation 2002, the employer must ensure that the exposure of employees to substances hazardous to health is either prevented or where this is not reasonably practicably control, I guess, or adequately control regulation 7. So that's the quote, and then they say the company is not meeting it. This duty is not therefore not being met due to the excessive amount of dust currently present on site. The organization would also need to report any cases of occupational asthma or cancer. So you get the idea, right? You get the idea. If you look at the third one, you see the same thing. Yeah, they give well, in fact, this one is actually wrong, right? The regulation is down here. And this is what I was telling Elastica. So the sample was not perfect. So they kind of went from good to bad then, right? So this is how not to do it. Like if you see here, there's really no quote here, and there's really not an example of failing to meet it then, right? But as he added that they don't give you so much different samples. It's one sample with different ways or different things to point out to you. Anybody have any questions? See, so do you all remember how to get the regulations on the HSC website? Anybody remember how to get it? You just put HSC and you just put, like if we're looking for if we were looking for, anybody remember this site, the Health and Safety Executive website, right? I'll show it on the phone again, Health and Safety, which is not today's class. We already had a class for this, right? Health and Safety. Right? Anybody remember this site? You must have remembered we had a whole class with it on how to find these things, right? So you accept, right? Health and Safety Executive website, you can use that. We have had a class with this before. There's a search engine there, and you just put the regulation there. Let's try to find something weird. I guess if we're looking for a regulation for chemicals have a lot, which would be COSH, right? Chemicals have a lot of UK legislation. I'm thinking about what they have in the sample too. Let's say fire, right? So just put your UK regulation for fire and you'll get the name of it. And you could also, of course, get the code from that once you open it up. You open it up one time, right? So UK regulation for fire, right? And we run the search of it there. We're gonna find, but they have more than one. You just need one, right? I seen DISA, I know by the name of DISA, that's the acronym, right? DISA, but it have others, right? I seen fire safety regulations. The best one I know is something called the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Orders. That's the best one, but anyone will do because the UK normally have more than one law for doing, or in that case, the hazard then, right? For the same thing anyway. See if you all are okay with that.
So I have a question. Is it specifically just the regulations, or can like ACOPs be used? Because I know like they don't have as much. Well, not legal binding, but they don't have they have like
Yeah,
some. But I know you can't use guarantees, but can ACOPs be used in this section or just the regulations?
a good question. I think I'll prefer stick to the regulation. Like you can mention the ACOPs because the ACOPs do have a legal standing. The ACOPs kind of tell you like the nitty-gritties of the regulation then, right? But I think the ACOPs is not fully legal. They say it's secondary legal. So maybe the regulations is first you could probably tie in the ACOPs. Like for example, some places you see they have two regulations, like the last one here, but which was action 3. You could probably stick to the regulations first. Because I know it have a regulation. Because the fact that you get in an ACOP meant it have a regulation because remember the ACOP is written to expand on the regulation, right? So I think you could put the both of them. You were quite right. I don't know if the class understood what you said, but you were quite right in that the guidances should not be placed here because guidances are not legal, right? Trying to see where I have it. Um, I had a student of mine this week, right? She submitted her project in NEBOSH. Well, would have been in the last sitting, but all of this drama sort of played out this week here, right? Where like she put the law there, like what I tell her to put, right? And the examiner comment was, you have been referred, which means you failed, right? Because you did not mention the ILO standards, right? Now, I didn't see that feedback as only like in the last week or so, the lady showed me the feedback. And she said she put the ILO standard because, the examiner said, you have mentioned the HSW Act. By the way, that was actually in the general legal, right? Which is still a part three. That's the piece we did before up here, right? That was in the part with legal, and that's like up here, right? The general legal. She may have had it done it here too, right? And she was saying, and that's what the examiner said. And she said, well, okay, well, she put it in and she's going to submit it. And I tell her no. I said no. I said the ILO standards is not a legal requirement. So she was kind of confused because the examiner saying one thing and I said something else, right? And I said, well, let me take it up with NEBOSH. And I did. And the outcome of it was that they awarded the girl a pass. The examiner made a mistake. So that's kind of like what Aiden was saying, like a guidance is not law. The ILO standards is not law too, so you should not put them there. Here was an examiner telling the student to put the ILO standard, and I said no. I said, let me just email NEBOSH this thing and see what's happening because the examiner made a mistake, right? Of course, most people don't believe that because, they say Trinidaders don't know what they're doing. But that may be true, but I know what I am doing, right? So I told the girl you deserve to pass. You cannot put the HSW Act there, or in this case, like if you cite the law, you cannot get it wrong. Because remember, this is specific legal. But if you put a guidance, well, then that's wrong. A new examiner should tell you put a guidance here because guidance are not legal. He done said that. The ILO standard is not legal. It's a standard. That's why they call it a standard. The ILO standards, right? You never said the ILO law. There's no such thing, right? So you all follow what I tell you to do, please, and you'll pass. And even if they tell you you fail, I will tell you you pass. Okay, you cannot fail. If you do what I tell you to do, you cannot fail. And it's not that I telling you to do anything, and I'm not anything special. I'm just telling you that I am echoing what I see here, watch it right here. Right? Your legal argument must reference relevant UK legislation. The ILO is not UK, right? They even have an example when talking about the control of substances, hazardous substance, you should reference the duties under the law for hazardous substances, which is the control of substances, hazardous to health regulation. Look at there, 2002, amended 2005 and 2006. They said I run a search and you'll find it. So I'm not telling you nothing that the guidance not telling you to do. But I telling you, if you do what the guidance say, you cannot fail. They had to write over that guidance. If NEBOSH didn't pass that student, I would have told them write over that guidance. They had to change the guidance because then you're saying the wrong thing, right? So this week, today is Saturday, right, which is yesterday. The days I just work every day, so as I don't really know. But yesterday they issued an apology to her, NEBOSH I'm talking about, and told her that she passed the paper. But she didn't believe me at first when I tell her that I'm gonna take it up with them and the ILO standards, like here you have a Trinidadian telling you one thing and a UK examiner telling you something else, but then who is correct? It's not about being correct, it's just about following the guidance, right? But I know she didn't believe me. She actually messaged me yesterday and she said that. She said it. But then she said thanks at the end. Thanks you for taking up the case. right? So folks, you'll do what I tell you to do, and just don't do what I tell you. Do what the guidance say to do. When in doubt, check the guidance. Look at right here. When in doubt, check the guidance. How do you know what to put in the specific legal? They said, they actually said regulations. Look at up here, right? Look at here, right? Hazardous, but you use the regulations, right? So they give an example of it. So you can't go wrong if you follow the guidance. You can go wrong if you follow friends or you follow somebody else, but you can't go wrong if you follow the guidance, right? Tell me if you're okay with this one. We can read this one for you if you want. No, I read this already for you. We could probably read the other one then. We could read the second one, right? So there was hazardous substance. They have under the control of substances hazardous health regulation 2002. So you put in the quote, the employer must ensure that the exposure of employees to substances hazardous to health is either prevented or where this is not reasonably practicably controlled, Regulation 7. This duty is not therefore being met due to the excessive amount of dust currently present on site. The organization would also need to report any cases of occupational asthma or cancer to the Health and Safety Executive, and they give another law here, which is RIDDLE, Regulation 8. But nothing is wrong with that because it is a regulation. You just needed really one, but they put two regulation here, right? Nothing is really wrong with that, right? All right, and if we look, so could we look at the third one time? I was telling you the third one, something was wrong with it. But could you tell me what's wrong with the third one? And we are on the second row then, right? So we are on specific legal argument. What's wrong with this second row? Or what could be wrong with it? Because it have more than one thing wrong with it. How does this not meet what I have on the left-hand side here? What's the first thing?
They don't have a specific quote from the act.
They do have a specific code, very good. What about the act itself? Is the act a regulation? Or the act is an act? You can remember that from page. I can't remember the page. But it's in chapter 1. There's a whole page on act regulation, ACOP's guidance. It was a powerful page. I think it's page 9. We spent a whole class on that one half a page. Well, if it's such a thing, half of a page. Right? So the question is the act a regulation? Should the act be here? If the guidance says specific UK regulation, right? What does that say about this one? The act not supposed to be there. So the act is wrong. You're not supposed to put the act here. You see, the act is not specific. The act is general. That's why the act belongs up here. Well, way up here. Back to up here, right? General legal is where you put the act. But specific legal is where you put the regulation. So the act doesn't belong here. So the act being here is actually wrong. Right? And the third thing that's missing here is that they didn't have where the company is what? This was supposed to be failing, right? So they didn't have where the company is failing to meet the regulations. So this one is wrong. See it? In other words, then, when you're doing yours, do yours like 2 or 3. Action 2 or action 3. Do it like this one or do it like this one. As I said, there is one sample, but they kind of give us like a grading scale and like what's good and what's fair. And that last one is, of course, bad. Right? Think you're okay with it? In short, don't put anything beside. And you see what I have here? UK regulation. Don't put OSHA, don't put Trinidad, don't put Guyana, put UK regulation. Put a code, put where they fail it, and then you cannot read that. I could back you up. I could say, well, yeah, you had anything. So I would write to NEBOSH personally and back you up. Right? But if you have the OSH Act there, that's wrong. Right? If you have the ILO standards there, that's also wrong. If you have a guidance there, that's also wrong. In that case, I would agree with the examiner. Right? All right. So the third row. So are you all making notes? That's the reason I'm writing it. That's the reason I'm writing it. This was the UK regulation, port failing. You cannot get that wrong after I spent so long on it. Right? All right, next one, we have well, we have a couple of things to do here, and I have some things to write in this too as well, right? But I think I could do the easy piece first, and I don't know if I'm going to do the easy one first, and then the hard, or the hard and then the easy. I'm not quite sure, right? I think I'll go. I think I'll go easy to hard. I think I'll do the easy pieces first, and then when I say hard, the piece that you're not really seeing that, right? I don't think anything is hard. It's just that there's something is missing from this one, right? So the obvious thing to tell you here, if you look at it, so doing the easy pieces, the obvious thing to tell you is to put in the likelihood, put in the severity, and you see these bullet points here? Just address them in that same order of the bullet point, right? So if they put types of injuries, you write down the type of injuries. If they say the number of workers at risk, write down the number of workers at risk. If they say how often is the activities carried out, put how often is the activities carried out. How widespread the risk is, say how widespread the risk is. That's the easy thing to do, right? I had somebody that mixed this thing up and they failed because of that. No, I didn't think that was a reason to fail, because I thought once you have it, you have it. So that's what I tell you, do it. You see, I'm doing this. It's not because I like to do sign language, right? It's because I'm telling you what happened. So how they have it in that line, you just finish off that line for them. Don't mix it up, right? Like I saw one, the guy was working WASA, right? WASA is the Water and Sewage Authority in Trinidad, but Sewerage Authority in Trinidad. The man had everything, and I felt that was not a reason to fail, right? I felt because you had it, you had it, you had a number of workers, you had whatever, but this was during the pandemic. That was 2021, right? A lot of things was a bit sketchy around that time anyway, right? I know, none that is not sketchy now. It was just more sketchy back then anyway, right? So anyway, let me read the easy piece for you out first. The types of injuries or ill health. Checking on my security camera. I think somebody else said, but they didn't knock on the door. I guess they will come back. Seem they have left. Anyway, so the types of injuries or ill health. So the severity of the risk occurring can be serious. Injuries are likely to range from minor injuries, such as bruising, sprains, strains, slightly more serious injuries, such as fractures, or very serious injuries, such as head or internal injuries, right? Illnesses and injuries, right? Number of workers at risk, approximately 6 mechanics regularly work around the inspection pit. Please, again, just finish the line from what the story I told you with the guy from WASA, right? How often is the activities carried out? The inspection pit is in regular daily use. So that's the frequency then. That's how often, right? And most mechanics carry out work in this area. How widespread is the risk? The risk is confined to the inspection pit area only and affect workers only in this area. If you want, we could read another one. Remember, I have something a little bit more to add to it, right? But you're just trying to catch the easy pieces of it first now, right? Don't mix it up. Don't mix it up. I'll tell you what happened to somebody already, right? Types of injuries or ill health. With hazardous substance, it is more likely that workers will become ill through inhaling the hazardous substance. Inhalation of dust could cause occupational asthma. Breathing in dust over a prolonged period could also cause occupational cancer arising from short-term irritation to long-term serious health condition. People can get the irritant dust on their skin, which can cause dermatitis in their eyes, causing eye irritation and damage, or even accidentally swallow it hand-to-mouth transfer from contaminated hands. The number of workers at risk, most of the workforce and the general public are currently exposed to dust. So that's how many. In fact, In fact, you might want to change that. With NEBOSH mightn't take that to be correct today. When they say most, you should probably say how much? 20. If you have 20 persons in a company, say all 20, right? How often is the activity carried out? High concentration of process thus are always present from the routine and frequent grinding and sanding activities being carried out. How widespread is the risk? The risk is present throughout the garage. So you just answer each one now. Just do it like that. Don't put it in a passage. You see how they have it like a kind of point form. It kind of each one is separated. It's kind of like they skip a sentence here. If you look at here, there's like a space there. There's like a space there. There's a space here. Kind of like what you're seeing here. Do it like that and your business will be all fine. I just have the other thing to add to it. Tell me if you're okay with the easy piece of it. I call it the easy piece because you're just kind of filling it out anyway. Anybody, any questions? Nadine, you okay? Lex, you okay? Crystal, you okay with that piece of it? Yeah. Okay, let's add the but those are my screen. Okay, let's add the little piece that is a little bit. So this is the piece that right now, right? So here the thing, right? Just to be safe, right? Because remember, different examiners checking your paper. Like this class is not the same examiner would check what I mean, at least hopefully, right? Normally, I know it's not the same examiner checking the whole class. So hopefully you get a good examiner, right? Who checking your paper. And we anticipate that is NEBOSH anyway, right? But what I've been seeing, right? Some of the examiners have been asking you to use the 5x5 matrix, if I remember it from your textbook. My book on the other side there. My textbook is on the other side, right? So in other words, then so I'll write that in for you. Let me get the marker. So you want to write in the risk numbers then, right? So in short, what is missing? Come to the marker. Yeah. What is missing is a 5x5 matrix. I don't know if you all know what I'm talking about, but I'll do one for you so you'll understand, right? So when you say likelihood of injuries occurring from working in and around the inspection pit is quite high, I had an examiner ask someone, well, how high is quite high? Like, how high is that? Is it 4? Is it 5? Remember the risk matrix, people? Remember the risk matrix? Yeah? So like, when you say, so you should say the likelihood of injuries occurred from working in and around the inspection pit is 4. And you can say what the 4 means. 4 means very high. The severity will depend on what height the worker falls from the top of the pit. And you could put there 5, meaning it'll be like serious injuries. And then you could say, therefore, the overall risk is 4/5, which will give us 20. Just give me a minute to check the book. I'm going to bring a book and show you. And I think I also have that person back by the door again outside, right? So just give me 1 minute with them, right? So 4/5, 20. And you say, well, then that's high. So then you see, if you get a different examiner, it doesn't matter if the person giving you the mark for quite high or if they're not. If you have 4/5, 20, they have to give you it. And again, I could back you up on that. All right, so I'm back. So in your textbook, chapter 3, they have the risk matrix there now. So I want to make sure your this set of numbers here. I want to make sure that you know like your tail is covered now. It's connected the wrong way. But I'll call the page for you then, page 34. And of course, remember the risk matrix here, the color coded thing anyway, right? So I want to make sure, because we don't know who your paper going to, and you should make sure too, right? So in other words, don't always follow the sample. Remember what I'm telling you, right? The sample is like a document, but it can be interpreted by examiners. I'm just telling you what I've been seeing examiners saying. What I know though is that if you put, 5 by 5 or 4 by 5 or 3 by 3, you had to get correct because remember you are now specific, right? So tell me if you're okay with putting in your matrix. Some people actually put in numbers back. They put like they will put a matrix back. From the book, they will say number one means I lost my page, right? Sorry. Number one will mean like unlikely, extremely unlikely. Number two means unlikely. Some people put the numbers back and they actually write it out, and that's perfectly fine, right? 3 means probable, 4 means likely, 5 means very probable, right? That is excellent. In fact, I think if somebody does that, no human being on the planet, England, Grenada, Guyana, Trinidad, could give you it wrong. Because you're fully covered, right? But what I don't want you saying what they're saying here, because you see, we don't know who correct in your paper. If somebody say high, low, medium, but what is really that? Because you see, they did quantify it in your textbook. They actually said what was red. Remember, the risk matrix is the things that are high is red, then you have yellow, that's medium, and then you have green. So you should do it like the numbers then, right? So if you're okay with that, we could take this off and we just have one more part to part 3, right? Again, feel free to ask any questions. You could use the matrix in the textbook. You could just Google a matrix too. Not all of them the same, just to let you know. Not all of them the same. Some matrices out there look a bit different, right? IOSH have a matrix, NEBOSH have a matrix, the HSE website have a matrix. They all kind of come very close. It'd be nice to use a different matrix as well, right? All right, the last piece of part 3, what you're doing here, there's nothing to really explain here. In short, what you're doing, you're just answering the 3 bullet points, right? They want to know what is the intended impact of your action. That's what you see here. They want you to justify the time scale that you indicated in your risk assessment. That's what you're seeing here. And they wanted to say whether you think the action will fully control the risk. That's what you're seeing here. So let's go to the first one, right? The intended impact of the action. What action? The action here was to purchase a mobile bridge to allow the mechanics to access both sides instead of jumping over the pit then, right? So let's see what the action is, right? So you write a reason why you say the bridge would improve working practices in the area of the inspection pit. At the moment, workers tend to jump from one side of the pit to the other, which has obvious risk associated with it. Next thing they wanted to do is say why you put the time scale. If you want to know what time scale we're talking about, let's go up and see. Let's go back and see. The time scale is on the 5th column. Yeah, we're going all the way back because here's what. That's what the examiners do. They just go and check it. I had somebody who failed for that, Somebody told the examiner never to go and check it. So that's why I started. Well, I always do this, but some people don't, they feel like wasting time, right? So the person put back the action, but they just make up another time scale and the examiner went and checked it. You see, here they had purchase a mobile bridge to allow the mechanics to be able to safely access both sides of the inspection pit when working at ground level. 2 months. So when we go back to what we all know, we're supposed to see 2 months. You cannot see something else. If you see something else and the examiner check it, you fail. But let's hope, that they all check it. I have seen people who pass with different time scales. And I'm glad how they pass. And my students. So here we have, let's see, this is justify the time scale. Justify is another word to say why you did what you did. The word justification means to say why, right? So they have here, I have given a time scale of 2 months, and we're supposed to see 2 months, as this is a specialized piece of equipment that nobody in the business has used before. The business will need to source a supplier and then arrange a delivery date. It is hoped that this project will be completed well within the 2-month timeline. And the last thing is you have to say, so you say why there, right? You say why you say 2 months, because you have to source a piece of equipment. Hopefully it will be done before that, right? This one is whether you take the action will fully control the risk. So the bridge will definitely reduce the likelihood of falling into the pit and getting serious injuries. Risk will be adequately controlled. Say whether you think the action would fully control the risk. Risk will be adequately controlled. It didn't have to be fully controlled. You can say adequately controlled or partially controlled, or it was not going to control the risk at all. You could actually say that. Let's read the second one. The intended impact of the action here was to enclose area to be set up for sanding and grinding operations, including the use of a local exhaust ventilation system, which is a LEV system, right? So the dust enclosure, this is the intended impact of the action, will have a major impact on the amount of dust in the work area. It will stop the dust from spreading across all work areas. You have to say why you choose the time scale. I'm not going to go up. I'm just going to say it was 6 months because I did check it before. I have given a time scale of 6 months for this to be completed, as plans would need to be drawn up, and the budget for the project would also need to be agreed with the managing director. I would hope that this will be the maximum amount of time that this project would need to be completed. Last piece, whether you think the action would fully control the risk. This will fully control the risk as the dust will be significantly reduced. And that's the end of part 3. So in a nutshell, for today was really part 2, right? In a nutshell, part 3 started way up here. You write a moral passage why health and safety should be improved. You write a legal passage why health and safety should be improved, or passages, and you write a financial passage why health and safety should be improved. Once you do that, you choose 3 of your hazards to talk about, but you're not really taking the hazard like alone. What you're taking is the control for the hazard. Purchase a mobile bridge, the hazard does fall, work at height, right? Once you choose the hazard, you put the law for the hazard, the regulation, you give a quote, and you say where the company is failing to meet the code. With respect to the likelihood and severity, you put the risk matrix, as what we said, you can use the 5x5 matrix. And the other piece of this, you just say the types of injuries or ill health, the number of workers at risk, how often is the activities carried out, and how widespread the risk is. The last piece of part 3, you say, what is the intended impact of your action? You say why you chose the time scale that you did, and then you'd say whether or not you think your control would actually fully control that particular hazard. That is part 3. We have part 4 to do, and when we wrap up part 4, that will be the end of the project, which means next week, we back to theory. In fact, no. In fact, probably yes. In fact, no. Next week is a holiday in Trinidad and Tobago. Right? Next week is the 31st of August. So we wouldn't have any class. Now, I actually wanted to, but I don't know if you all want to. I could do it the evening off, of course. The reason is that I'm flying out on Sunday. I'm heading to Grenada for a week to do a job. And the other week, which is the 1st of September, I will still be in Grenada. So that's why I wanted to have class Saturday to make up for that week. But you all tell me, I mean, we're not far behind. We're not behind at all. I mean, finishing this means we almost finished chapter 3, and then chapter 4 is 2 sessions long. Now we have the whole of September. September, I checked it, September have actually 5 Saturdays. So in a way, You can check it for yourself and see. I was checking flights. Yeah. September have 5 Saturdays, and you can see that. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. So we just need one Saturday to wrap up chapter 3. That's the 8th. Because I will still be in Grenada on the 1st. I will be in Grenada on the 1st, come to think of it. Sorry, on the 6th. The 6th, right? I'm leaving on Sunday,
September
coming
have
back the
4
following
Saturdays.
Sunday. Say again?
September have 4 Saturdays. So the first Saturday would be the 7th.
Oh, is it Sunday?
Then
Is okay. Sorry, this is
yeah,
actually
it's
process
5
safety, yeah.
Sunday.
Sorry, it's process, yeah. So then our next class, if we don't have class next, it could be the 14th of September. Unless if I take you off a Wednesday evening. Hence the reason I wanted to have class next week. But what I'm saying, right? We need one Saturday to finish chapter 3, and then we have 2 Saturdays to finish chapter 4, and then we'll still finish on time. Your exam is the 3rd week of October, right? So we'll finish just as we're supposed to finish anyway. So you could probably let me know what you want to do Saturday. I honestly could do this Saturday off, but I don't mind finishing chapter 3, which is next week Saturday is a holiday. But in a way, home anyway, to make up for the 7th, then the 7th that I'm leaving on the 1st, coming back on the 8th. So the whole week are across there. And it's teaching again. Well, I'm not say cheat, but training.
One quick
Right?
question. The exam is on the 3rd or the first week in October?
Yeah, I
Well,
was under the impression. I think you had mentioned the first week in October.
which is what? What day is that? Okay, here what? I think NEBOSH will have to say that. You know why I said that? You see how the month starts so early? Like the month starts on the Wednesday. The 1st is the Wednesday, isn't it? If for those of us who have a calendar.
The 1st October is the Tuesday, and then the
Oh, that's
7th
a
of October will be
Tuesday.
the Wednesday.
I think NEBOSH should have to confirm that, innit? What I know, right? Like when the month starts like close to the exam date, they just put it for the following week. Now, I could confirm that with you. I could confirm that with you a bit after class today. I could go on the NEBOSH side. There's like a calendar. I was trying to find it there, but what I know, I mean, unless if they like how the first week is the Wednesday there, that is the 2nd of October, then your exam could probably be the 9th, but I need to confirm that. When I go on the site after class, I'll take a picture of it and I'll send it to the group, right? Now, if it's the 9th, it means we could have class on the 5th, but we don't need to because we finish on the 28th, right? If by any chance you all wanted anything more, we could probably do a Wednesday evening. But it wouldn't be like makeup. It'd be like, because we have the number of Saturdays to finish the course then, according to the schedule, right? But if you all want something, we could do something on a Wednesday evening, probably from 6 to half 7. Wednesday's one of the only nights I'm free, right? As I say, Wednesday, Monday and Tuesdays, NEBOSH and Guyana. We have a Guyana class, a full Guyana class Monday and Tuesday. Thursdays is a short courses, right? This Thursday, I may be doing a GSA course if anybody's interested, task-based risk assessment. If anyone is interested in that, right? You get this certificate. There's no exam and stuff to it. It's just the knowledge and skills that you learn from it anyway, right? So you will let me know, right? You will let me know. It's not as if we're short for the days, as I trying to tell you, right? But if you all want that constant support then, right? We could probably do a Wednesday or something when I get back. But the number of days would finish the number of courses anyway, or the number of Saturdays we had planned to finish, right? At the end of the thing, I have another computer here. I'm so silly, yeah?
Sir,
I have
I
another,
just checked the online schedule. It shows that the October exam is on the 2nd,
which means you don't
the
have
2nd of
another day then.
October.
Yeah, okay, good. So then, but we'll still finish on time, and maybe we could work with the idea of of support if you need like a Wednesday or something, if you feel like coming to the end and you're feeling nervous. It shouldn't be because it's a book exam. We could meet on one of the Wednesdays or something to just kind of, do some past papers or whatever have you, right? We have been doing them all along. You all have been getting assignments all along anyway, right? But that's a possibility. A Wednesday evening is one of the only evenings I'm free for now before oil and gas takes it. And we could work with that. Folks, should I finish our part 4? Part 4 is very easy. So part 4, so what you're doing again, I mean, the best way to describe part 4 for you is just to answer what you see on the left-hand side. So here they have planned review date, period, with reasoning. So here they have the company policies to review risk assessments at least every 12 months. So that's the reason. I therefore set the review date for 12 months' time, 25th of April, 2023. Now, it cannot be retroactive. It have to be, of course, forward, right? But this is the sample we have from NEBOSH. They haven't updated it since anyway, right? So you could say, in fact, I wouldn't say anything. I think this is quite clear, right? But I could say that differently. I could say, the company policy X, Y, and Z policies was to review the risk assessments, yeah, like I guess yearly or whatever, or every 6 months. Then you can say, as such, the risk assessment will be reviewed and you can check 6 months from now and put the actual date, right? The only catch with this, so there is a catch with this, is that they want it as a date. Somebody's outside, right? Let me finish what I'm writing here. They want a date, they want a month, and they want a year. That's the catch with it. You mightn't think there's a catcher, but I had somebody who didn't know that, who didn't take on what we were saying. They want a date, a month, and a year, and the person just put annually, and NEBOSH said that wasn't what they was looking for. Just know that somebody was outside the class. Well, I guess they was there. Not there anymore.
I get it, sir.
I get it.
I'm gonna come up for Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is gonna drop, so but I just want to know, tell them present, right?
Not a problem. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Keegan. All right. Yeah. So the catch here with this one is telling you we need a date, a month, and a year. So the 25th of October 2025. That's what you had to put in yours. The 25th of September 2025. Right? Remember, projects due the week before the exam, the last Wednesday. If the exam is confirmed from the 2nd of October, then your project is due the last Wednesday in September. But you can still put October date in it, they'll still give you correct. You can put the 1st of October 2025. But it must be a date, a month, and a year. Right? The only reason you get it wrong is if it was not a date, a month, and a year, or you put annually. And then, hopefully you send us a draft so we can fix it for you, right? Or at least tell you to fix it. All right, how the risk assessment findings will be communicated and who you need to tell. So I would arrange a meeting with the finance director. So this is who and how, right? So who, let me just get this for you so that you'll see it, right? Of course, I need to change back the Zoom marker now. So how the risk assessment findings will be communicated and who you need to tell. So this is how and who. How you're going to tell everybody about the RA and who would you need to tell it to, right? So I would arrange a meeting with the finance director to go through and agree the actions in the risk assessment. I would provide a summary of the findings and actions for the workshop and store manager. These will be emailed initially and follow-up meetings if required. The findings of the risk assessment will be included in the next available toolbox talks, where I would also advise the workers. So that's the people, that's who would you need to tell, right? I would also advise the workers on the actions that are to be taken. A summary of the risk assessments and the actions to be taken, and the actions to be taken would be posted on the company's intranet that all workers have access to. The last piece here, there's really no catch. The only catch here is exactly who and how. Who are you going to tell the workers and how you're going to tell them? Meetings, toolbox talks, company intranet. Last one, right? How you'd follow up on the risk assessment to check that the actions have been carried out, right? They say I will set diary reminders for roughly 10 days before the action is due to be completed. I will speak to the responsible person for each of the action to find out the progress against each action. Should the action not be on target for completion, I would find out the reasons why. Example, is it down to finance or other resource issues, such as workers' time to complete the actions? If any action look like they are not going to be completed on time, I will speak to the finance director to see if additional resources is available for the action. Actions that are very overdue, i.e. completion is more than 6 months late, will be referred to the managing director via the finance director, right? So there's actually just one little catch here other than you saying how you're going to follow up with the RA. One of the things they look for is to see how you would address overdue actions, right? Overdue actions. So an overdue action is if they said they wanted 1 month to do something, but in the 1 month it didn't get done, then that's overdue. So then what you're going to do then? What you're going to do if the month pass, right? So that's what you see. Actions that are very overdue, doesn't matter if it's 6 months or 1 month. Remember the table, you set your action. You'd have said 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, right? So if it's overdue, you can say this could be reported to the supervisor who would report it to the CEO of the company, right? And that is the only catch with this PC. And that's it. Part 4 is actually finished. And the project is actually finished, right? Let me know if you have any questions so we can actually stop the recording and get the roll going. Any questions, anyone? Been very quiet today. All right, well, I guess we'll stop the recording. Well, I did see some in the week, as I mentioned to you all. I did see some. All seem to be going good to me, right? Lex had asked, but